welcome back. It's been a while. It's been probably, I mean, to me it feels like a while, but it's only been like a month or two since I last uploaded. But we made a ton of progress. There wasn't really any, views on this YouTube channel, so I kind of just focused primarily on the truck. Just getting that done. So it's pretty much running condition. The tuner, sending data logs to him with the Haltech, and he's been straightening it out. But I guess to give a rundown right now, I had the fuel pressure set too low, so I set the fuel pressure when the motor was off, but the fuel pump was on. But I should have set the fuel pressure when the motor was running at idle. So it was at 35 psi when running on idle, and it should have been like 43. So it leaned out in the top end, no matter what you did with the fueling. He told me above 6,000 RPM. It was leaning out, so my fault. But I think when I installed the head studs, not really the correct way either, without pulling the head. I think I might have lifted the gasket or something. It's just doing weird stuff. So, time and again, I'm probably gonna have to do this head gasket. So that's kind of where we're at now. The head gasket's pumping air into the coolant system, and it keeps pushing water out when it gets up to temp. Not when it's cold, but when she gets up to temp, it starts pushing some fluid out. So I put a Gatorade jug out here, and it filled it up like 4 times over, puking out. So I think we need to do this. So from there, I guess I'll show you where I'm at right now with the build. Alright, so this is where we're at right now. Probably looks a little bit different than where I left off. I got a lot of stuff done pretty much just to get it running. So we'll start on this side. I guess I got a new battery tray. Just got this off eBay, cheap thing. Works pretty good, it's solid. Bolted down. I got all my I started taking this apart, but I was going to show you guys kind of what I got. Battery cables, these are good 600 volt cables. I got everything crimped and shrink wrapped. We got a breaker over here, 300 amp breaker, protects the whole truck. If anything were to short out after this, a short run, then everything else after this is protected. So that's there. This is kind of a bus bar with my multiple grounds. These are grounds for the truck side. So the body runs, for example, like lights and stuff. That's what these grounds are for. We have our master clutch cylinder in here, or slave cylinder, whatever you call it, for the clutch. I got my new line ran. The clutch works great in this thing. This is power steering reservoir. Works great, had no problems. Tightened one fitting up that was loose when I fired it up, but actually now it's doing perfectly fine. Won't have to touch that whole system again. It's solid. This is my vacuum bar here with quick push lock fittings. I started taking this apart, but this is pretty much how it goes. I still need to make some mounts for this, obviously, but I was just more focused on getting it running at the moment. And then, yeah, my boost stuff, blow-off valve, all the engine wiring's primarily done. I have some extra inputs kind of trailed off here, kind of left the wiring available for adding, like, for example, a fuel pressure sensor. We're going to add that into the logs so the tuner can look at that and just have more data to work with. And then on the other side of the engine bay here, we have serpentine belts on. It is a little too big, so it kept skipping off the top pulley here, and it actually shredded a whole rib off. But new belt is actually in store right now. I just have to pick it up. But we got a shorter belt because this one's stretched out and the tensioner is maxed out, so it's not doing any good. It's really loose. I mean, hard to see on camera, but it's just loose and done. So we're gonna fix that. It actually broke my turbo feed line. I just saw this here, so this thing is kinked down there. I don't know if you can see it down there, but we got a big gash right there, and then from the adapter feeding there, it's kinked. So I need a new one of those. And then other than that, this whole side's doing good, no leaks. Exhaust is mint. This is my heater core solution here. So pretty much took the original heater core, chopped the lines back, welded my own AN lines to this. So it's a male AN10 flare. In this, so I get feed on this side. So this one is feed from the back of the head. I can see that braided line down there. That is from the back of the head, inputting into the heater core and then coming out right here through this line, and it goes under the motor and then back to the thermostat housing, back into the motor. So that's the system on that. Pretty sure the cooling system should be fine, but the head gasket's blown, so we're trying to deal with that right now. But I think once this head gasket gets done, we'll be solid. So while we were doing logs and tuning with the guy over remote tuning, he found that the phasing gear for the intake was not working. So this intake cam, you know, the VTEC comes on, that works just fine. I can hear it, it cracks on beautifully. But on the intake side, there's a cam gear here that phases the cam, so it changes the duration and the valve overlap and etc. But this phaser is not working, so this solenoid controls that. So when you're under a heavy load or something trying to spool the turbo up, this cam gear will try to that's a new one. Anyways, this cam gear will try to move the intake cam. I just got distracted. Anyways, doesn't work. Helps spool the turbo up, but it's not working. So I got a new solenoid on the way for that. And I just found my crank. Yeah, these are my crank wires. So the belt must have slapped these loose too. That's because this belt just ricocheted and just broke everything off. So looks like I gotta fix this. I do have extra Honda pins, so I did some pinning on the harness, and I think I'm getting the hang of it by now. So that's where we're at right now. About to take the head off this thing. A little bit of a challenge, but I think it'll be good practice for me, because I know in the meantime, or down the road, I'm gonna have to do this. And that's pretty much where I'm at so far. I can show you the stainless exhaust that I tigged up myself. I just hopped on. It turned out pretty good, actually. Kind of surprised myself. I did no practice. I just hopped on it, And you know, I did a couple, I think this will be my third complete stainless system that I've made on a car. So I'm a little familiar with it. But yeah, I just hopped on it and started welding, and it turned out great. So I just left the settings there and just continued doing my thing. All I have is grinder and a cheap, pretty cheap Harbor Freight sander that I use for the fitment. So this is my sander that I used. So I just lay the pipe on here and then sand my connection smooth. So this is one of my pipes. It's 3-inch stainless, cheapest stuff that you can buy off eBay, but I can make it work. I mean, it's not the show car thing, but you know, it definitely gets the job done. And that's what I do. I just put on the sander and smooth it down nice and smooth, so then the mating surfaces are nice, and then I can TIG it a lot better. So huge help with this thing. And then also the exhaust comes out the bed here. It is a little crooked right now, but I still have to add a V-band. So this exhaust is one piece right now. I have to add a V-band in here, so then it can be a 2-piece exhaust system and come out a lot easier, so I can take up this gap when I install that V-band. When I weld it up, I'll take out some more material, move the exhaust this way, not too hard. And the drive line in here, I got a bigger drive line, or I just had them pretty much make up a whole new drive line, because what I had originally just would not work. So they only used really the yoke from my original drive line. And it's a thicker wall steel tubing. It's pretty heavy drive line. I think it'll definitely handle anything that I throw at it. It won't be a weak link at all. I think the axles, or the rear diff, is the weak link now. So I'll show you that maybe later, the underside, when I get to that point. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Alright, so we're about to pull the head off this thing. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but anyways, I'll go through it over again. So you got the motor running, everything decent. Had problems with cooling system since like the start. So I think it was the cheap way that I installed the head bolts, head studs. I didn't pull the head off, I just pulled one bolt out and then put in a head stud and retorqued it. And I did hear a little bit of a gasket shift. So honestly, I don't know, but I think this needs to be done. So we'll set up this camera for a little time lapse. Pull. Alright, so we got the head off. Head off the motor, only the head, that's what I was going for. So the head is off and the block cleaned up pretty good. And I think there's kind of not really a horrible coolant leak in my opinion, because it would only happen when the truck got warmed up, or if we were doing like a couple pulls or something. It was like he was lifting the head or something heat related was moving, and it was allowing the combustion to pump into the coolant system, not the oil system. Nothing else was mixing. It was just combustion pushing into the coolant system, and quite a bit of it when it got hot. But when it was cold, it was perfectly fine. So anyways, this is what we're down to now, just a block. And it's nice, the serpentine stuff stays here. Don't have to really touch that at all, but this block is pretty good. They had 200 psi across all 4 cylinders, and they were within maybe 10 or 5 psi of each other. So they're looking pretty good. And for some reason I couldn't get these 2 head studs out, but I'll now that I have tons of room, I can actually work on them better. And I was worried that the head would actually come up and hit my HVAC adapters here for the heater core, but it actually came out lots of room, so I guess I got pretty lucky with that design. Other than that, there's not much to say, just a regular head removal. I did have one little hiccup, but I'll show you here. So this is my adapter from K24, and this taps into the oil, kind of where the oil pressure switch would go for like your oil light. But this is kind of an adapter, so it's just a small little thing, correct thread and everything. And this sits on the block in this kind of like in this orientation. And this red one is the turbo feed line, and this other one, this is my oil pressure and oil temp all in one sensor. And again, I need a new oil feed line because this one got really kinked, and a little further down it got slashed, so I have a new one coming of this. But anyways, this looks like it got pitched sideways, so it kind of juked the threads in here. I don't know if you can see it really well. It's pretty small, but in here the threads aren't doing so hot. There is thread still in it, but I have a tap for this, so it's an 1/8 inch NPT, I think 27 thread count, I think. This is pretty common, so I'll run a tap in there. Even when I threaded this adapter in here, it didn't go in very far. I mean, I'm talking like probably 3 threads, so I know I can at least tap that hole in the block in much deeper, and that will allow that adapter fitting to sit in the block deeper and grab more threads and be more stable than just a couple threads, because it was honestly hanging on by a thread. So we'll look at the head here on the table. So we got everything laid out on the table. I guess we'll start with the big question, the head gasket. I can't honestly find where this was leaking, and again, we didn't have much run time to make like any combustion marks, or it wasn't really that bad. But I know the coolant system, when it did get hot, it could not recover. We always had to shut it off or do something to let it cool down. For example, revving the engine very high on the RPM, just free revving, so then it would get the water pump spinning because there was a bunch of air, and then the coolant would move and the engine would cool down. So that's kind of the symptoms I had. Again, when you fired the truck up cold, she was perfectly fine. But when it got up to coolant temp, like 180, and then it would stop there, and then it would keep climbing. So I think I just need to call it. That's why I just did it out of the blue, just a whole head gasket. I'm not in a rush. So I want to get this settled and not be a question mark. And I do think that this head was removed at some point, or this is a different head or something, because this head is a lot cleaner than that block when I originally got it. This is a used JDM block, a K24 A2 with an RBB head. So I have no idea. But I know that it just needed to be done, and now that I'm doing it, shouldn't have to worry about it if everything is done correctly. And it's not too bad. There's no black tar residue or anything on this head, but it's pretty clean. Combustion chamber looks pretty mint. All the valves look good. Again, this thing had super good compression, so I'm not even like worried about the pistons, rings, head, or anything. Just the head gasket is what I'm after. The cams look, peachy as they were the first time when I put the studs in. This is the whole valve train. This is kind of a weird system. It all squeezes together, but right now it kind of wants to spring apart, which is kind of new to me. I didn't know that these really want to come apart, but you have to push them together, keep them pushed together, or else this thing will just want to explode. Anyways, these are all the caps. Caps, I don't know, they look fine. Everything looks fine. It's just this head gasket. So just clean everything up. I got a new VVT solenoid coming, so this thing is gonna get trashed. Alright, so we got the Colorado running. Went to a car meet last night. And well, during the whole day yesterday before the car meet, me and the tuner, Sheldon, really cool guy, he helped me. I sent him a couple logs, made several runs, and second to third gear pulls for him. And we got this thing pretty sorted out. The VVT is still not working, so the variable valve timing, not the VTEC, but the for the intake cam, it's not phasing the gear. So the cam, intake cam can actually phase at a different degree, and that is a lot of power on the table that I'm leaving behind. So actually I gotta diagnose that today, but first I'm gonna get some oil, because when I adjusted the fuel pressure back up to where it should be, the motor ran super rich and it actually thinned out the oil, but luckily I think I was early enough to catch it. So when I got back, I just hoisted the car up, drained it while it was hot, and no sparkly stuff came out, so I think we're good. There's no new noises or anything. I was pretty careful, easy on loading the motor up. So kept the oil pressure up the best I could. It was like 35 psi on the freeway, in fourth gear, so at like 3,000 RPM. So I think I got lucky. I caught it in time. So we're just gonna keep moving forward. Put some fresh oil in it, figure out this VVT, and then send another log to Sheldon, and then we'll go from there. And I think she's pretty solid. So he did a pretty good job on tuning this thing, I'll have to admit. So shout out to him. But yeah, we'll keep going.